Okay, the H1B guy here, and today, the H1B guy live, Stamp It Out 7. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B guy offers a variety of consulting services. If I can provide you peace of mind by helping you bridge the gap between your employer and your immigration attorney, please reach out. I'd love to hear how I could help you. Today's live stream is brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. Today, I have the privilege of hosting Dr. Raj Karnatak today here on the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out 7. Like many others that I've had on this channel for the Stamp It Out Q&As, Dr. Raj and I were introduced through Twitter. He and I had the chance to have a great long morning coffee chat about a week and a half ago, and I just found his story to be so fascinating. I wanted to mention, if you have any questions for Dr. Raj or for myself, post those in the chat. We'll get to those today at the end of the Q&A. Definitely going to cover COVID, pandemic, vaccines. We're going to talk about the green card backlog. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask Dr. Raj, I definitely want you to put those in the chat and we'll get to them. I'd like to ask you too, if you haven't already, please like this video. It really helps promote the live stream and the YouTube algorithm. On Monday, we set a record here on the H1B Guy channel as we went over 80 live streamers at one time. So really looking forward to breaking that record, and hopefully maybe we can do that today. So without any further ado, Dr. Raj, how you doing today? Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
And for everyone, Dr. Raj is currently in Milwaukee. How's the weather there today? Is it a little chilly this morning, or?
Oh, yes. It's getting cold here now. It's part of the North America. I think it's kind of we don't have that much of snow here yet. So there was a bad snowstorm, I think, in Northeast last week.
I saw my cousins in Madison actually had some snow on the ground a few days ago. So
yeah, it was very light. It was very
yeah.
light.
Well, as we always start off here on the Stamp It Out, can you tell me your story? You know, where are you originally from? How and why did you come to the U.S.?
Yeah, thank you, Robert, thank you for this question. I want to start that before I just want to start. What exactly I do. I'm an infectious disease specialist, and I'm also trained in critical care medicine. What does that mean? Is I treat patients in intensive care units, and with the specialization in infectious disease and critical care medicine. So I'm duly trained in both the specialties, and you know what is going on right now. So we'll talk about that a little bit longer. So my journey starts with, I grew up in northern India. That's where growing up, I saw my father, who worked in the primary healthcare system in India, and he used to work with the surveillance program for the infectious diseases and immunization in India. So this kind of have a pretty long-standing connection with how I got interested in medicine. And I had seen him interacting with the physicians and kind of doing things, getting the surveillance of tuberculosis, malaria, all those kind of things. And a physician's ability, how much you can impact on someone's life, it's just something that inspired me to go into med school. And I went to med school in northern India, Himalayan Institute of Medical Sciences. It's in Dehradun. And after that, I did some post-med school hands-on training at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi. That's the premier institute in India. And that training was mostly in critical care related, intensive care medicine related. And then I moved to Brooklyn, New York. That's where I did my internal medicine residency. And after that, I moved to Penn State, Hershey, Pennsylvania. I was an assistant professor of medicine there. And I was at the Penn State and kind of academic medicine. That's where kind of always excited me. I was doing what I wanted to do in my life, pretty much kind of in the midst of trainees, med student, and practicing medicine. And that's when we all learned that Ebola hit. that kind of opened our eyes. A lot of physicians at that time, those who were practicing. I was in a large teaching institution in US, and I was pretty much feeling that I was not really equipped with the skills to take care of the patients. If something like that comes to my doors, how I'm going to deal with that. I think that pretty much changed my life, and I went on to do further specialize in infectious diseases at the University of Nebraska, and also did further training in critical care medicine there. And here I am practicing both. And that eye opener in 2014, that has been eye opener for me, and I think a lot of physicians like me, and that changed our life. I think after that we saw in 2016 there was Zika came in, and kind of this has been one after another. I think we got a hint at that time what we are getting into, what we can get into, and what can happen in the future, and we need to get ready. And here we are, and it's a yeah, it has been a really long journey.
Yeah, and I think you had originally told me you came to the U.S. to take some exams and do some volunteering. Was that 2008? Is that
Yes,
right?
yeah, 2008. When you come from India, you do your med school there, and whatever training you have to do in India, you do an internship and then do some other trainings. And after that, you go through like a sequence of exams, the United States medical license exam, step 1, step 2, clinical skills exam, step 3. You take all those exams, and probably you have to be really, on top of the numbers to get into training here. So that was all done before 2010. So yeah.
And then I believe we had talked about you when you first got your first residency. That was in 2011. Is that right?
Yes, that's what January 2011. That's where I started.
Yeah. So if we could go back, and if you could go back, and let's go back, I guess, to that 2008 timeframe when you first came to the U.S. Is there any advice that you would give yourself, 12 years ago to be prepared for before you decide to get on that proverbial plane and come to the U.S.?
Oh yeah, great questions. So I get this question from a lot of people, those who are trying to come here right now, and what I tell them is, you get ready, buckle up for unnecessary visa delays and backlogs, and you may get involved in something that is completely unnecessary, and you don't want to waste your time to, rather than focusing on bigger issues. I tell them
Mm-hmm.
that advice, and I will tell 12, 13 years back, myself, I would have told the same thing. And the question is what I would have done with that advice. A lot of what US want to do is bring brightest of bright here, and those people are very, very smart. They can figure out
Mm-hmm.
things very quickly. So I probably I probably wouldn't have taken this path if I would have known what's going on here. And I leave that to person who's I can give an advice, get ready for all this stuff, but the person who's going to make the decision, it's going to be their own decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that is we see a lot of the conversation happening right now, about students that are planning for fall 2021 and spring 2022, and a lot of them looking to folks like you to give them advice, right? Because
Oh,
here we are with you, right? I mean, 2008. You've been in this country 12 years. Now, some of it as a student, right? And passing the appropriate med exams. But still, I mean, that's a long time to still be, quite frankly, an H-1B visa, which is what you are. And, the interesting thing about your H-1, which is different than a lot of folks that we've had on this channel, is that you're a cap exempt H1, meaning that you're a medical professional working in a nonprofit organization, and so you're not subject to the lottery. But it honestly doesn't make your plight any different. You still have to stand in the same employment-based preference line. And so, what's that last 10 years like been as an H1B visa? Working for a variety of medical institutions.
yeah, as I mentioned, my journey, it's been 10 years I'm on H1 and going through all this stuff. And it's been a very, very difficult journey. If you look at my career and what I have started in 2011 in New York, and I've been in New York, and then I was at Penn State, and briefly I was in Virginia, going to Nebraska and going to Wisconsin, and you, when you switch on a H1 like this, you are getting into yourself into a lot of paperwork and delays and a lot of difficulties that you can go to. That's like millions of hours of you spend on paperwork, there's or money you spend on it, whatever it is. Like that's one part of it. Not to talk about that. uh, when you're in your career and you think about you're done with your training and you're working in a large institution like Penn State. It's a tertiary, it's a large university. You're training medical students, training residents, and you pretty much think like that you can be a permanent resident now. You can probably kind of that you can take for guarantee that will happen to you automatically. But no, that's not something going to happen to you, because you're going to get entangled into the visa delays and green card backlog stuff. And what I also want to say is at that time I thought that I should be focusing on the bigger issues that matter the most, and what are the challenges we have in medicine, and those kind of things, rather than backlog issues. But not, I got entangled into this backlog. And I'll kind of go into what happened to me. That's this year, when I moved from Nebraska to here. And this happens every time you move from one job to another job. This happens every. Here I'm an intensive care unit doctor treating COVID patient in the ICU. And I'm being called healthcare heroes. That's what we are being called right now. And what happens is, this July I didn't have my driver's license because my H1B was pending. You call us healthcare heroes, and for a week I was kind of logged in here because I couldn't drive, because I did not have my H1 was pending, and I did not have my driver's license. And that's one part of thing. This happens every time you go from one job to another job. This happens to you. And the other part of it is, you want to live in a society where you want to be a meaningful part of the society. You want to contribute. I'm here treating Americans, serving Americans from last 10 years. I want to assimilate in the society. I want to be, I have an emotional relationship with the society, because being an intensive care unit doctor, I am with my patient probably the toughest time of their life. Either it's COVID or non-COVID. You can think about this. What is happening right now is, I has circumstances when this is due to the pandemic. People, family is not able to visit. I had patient who was dying, and I'm holding their hand, and I'm the only one around there. That's where, providing the compassionate care is part of my job too. At some time when we go beyond a limit, and at the same time when I think, if something happens to my family, I won't be able to go. And what kind of visa system, what kind of green card backlog system puts people into this kind of thing? A decade serving here, and if something happens to my family, and I'm worried that probably I won't be able to go. and and similarly, in the similar terms, if you're serving somewhere, you want to be part of the society, you want to assimilate in the society. I'll give you an example. I have been here 10 years. Last time when I was entering into the US, the first thing I was asked by the visa officer, why are you here? This was literally, these were the words, why are you here? So I said, I looked at it. I was just, I was kind of taken back by this. For instance, I said, I live here. So that question hit me, like then he wrote something there and then kind of got me in. And this happens every time to all of us. And this is not, I'm not the only one. There are 20,000 physicians like me, and most of them are working in rural America and serving there. I have a friend who is an interventional cardiologist, and he might be the only one. If somebody goes with an acute MI, he might be the only one who is probably standing between that patient and the death. And that guy is, and I am, and I see Rock, we are backlog. Why are we here? What are we doing here? You go to DMV, your driver's license can't get it. You're being questions. It's, how this is again and again, and this is very painful. And this is my, this is what happening to us. Okay, you take it. You got your green card, you got your work permit, you can't live that way. You work here and just go wherever you want to go to hell. And that kind of attitude, that's where I feel like this is where we get into this green card delays. This is not happening to, you tell me one example, what country treats their legal immigrant this way? Tell me one example in this world. I would just, I'll just stop there.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the story that you're telling about being called to assist with other facilities, right? That story was told by Dr. Pravina Jadev that she wrote in the journal Standard. And, she's a doctor in I think Rockford, Illinois, physician in Rockford, Illinois, and was talking about the planned pop-up hospitals that were happening in Chicago. And because she's, on an H1B and doesn't have an LCA for that pop-up location, she has no work authorization to go to a pop-up tent facility to help treat patients. And then to hear your story on that, it's almost very eye-opening to realize that, medical H1Bs and kind of the regulations that surround them. And, on this channel, we talk about H1B STEM all the time, right? But what you do is different. And yet there's still a very similar way in which it's regulated. And, talking about the rural America, right? And we've talked about that a good bit, that it's rural America that suffers. Small towns that have one physician in 100, 200, 300 square mile radius. And a lot of times that physician is a high skilled immigrant because they're the only ones that are willing to live in the extreme northwest corner of Montana or wherever that may be, right? And so, that cycle that's created from that is just something that is very painful.
I get these calls every week or every other week that, I get a call from a small rural ICU that we don't have a doctor taking care of patient in our ICU. Can you come and assist? I cannot go. I cannot work beyond my boundary. When I tell them I'm on visa and green card delay for 10 years, they get frustrated. I want to help out, man. And then they get frustrated. I can hear every person I have talked to these phone calls. They get so frustrated. They said Congress has to do something about this. And this is happening for too long and too much. And this is beyond now. And I hear them. And I'll tell you my story. I started saying this point that I got inspired when this Ebola happened, when that changed my life, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of changed everything. That was an eye opener for me. And what we are seeing, we're going to talk about the vaccine. A lot of vaccine scientists, they were a frontline healthcare worker like me, and the vaccine scientists, it was an eye opener for them too. They felt like, something like this is going to hit us very quickly and we need to get prepared. So that has changed. And the stories I got inspired by Doctors Without Borders. These guys going to West Africa treating Ebola patients. Some of those were brought into US to treat those patients. One of the guys, Dr. Rick Sakra, I don't know if you heard his story.
No.
So this is a guy he's an American. He's a guy who went to West Africa. He was treating Ebola patients there, and he contracted Ebola. He was brought into University of Nebraska Medical Center, treated in the biocontainment unit, and got better. What was the first thing he did after that?
Went back
to West Africa and to treat the Ebola patient.
Right.
This is the kind of commitment we are talking about.
Yeah.
And here I am, an infectious disease and intensive care unit doctor in the middle of pandemic. When you remember when this all started, New York was burning. Right,
Yeah.
There was like what was
That
happening.
was the end of February, beginning of March, right? In that time frame. Yeah.
The first thing I said, I'm going to New York. This is what my thing is. Why I'm here. Like I need to go where this is happening, but no, I cannot go. I cannot work beyond my work boundaries.
Right.
And the last month there was a call for intensive care unit doctors from Texas, and I cannot go. It's beyond. It's I have no words for that. What else you're supposed to do? Like why, why
it forces you to sit on the sideline, right?
Sit on the sideline and you shackle people, that, why can't you go work? You should be in the middle of fire. This is where you prepared all your life for.
Yeah.
6 years back, this is what we are looking into. This is going to hit us one day and we should be on the front line. 6 years back, this is what I started my career as, and here I am, and I'm just shackled.
And I think you had told me that, when you were an assistant professor at Penn State, Hershey, and you were watching how, University of Nebraska Medical Center sort of handled the Ebola outbreak, and how they set up the units, the care units, and that really kind of grabbed your interest, and was one of those moments where you realized, hey, I want to go and study these pathogens like Ebola and MERS and SARS, and now SARS, COVID, right? The CoV-2. Uh, so tell me about that journey. What was that like, going from as an assistant professor, right, to now, hey, I'm going to go study infectious disease pathogens, which kind of landed you in Omaha, Nebraska, right? And then
Right.
from there, you spring to where you are now. But you've mentioned this a little bit, but was there anything that was like an aha moment for you, where you're like, that's what I want to go do? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So when this is all happening to you and you're realizing and that you need to get ready for this, and I talked to the people, folks at the Nebraska Medical Center, and amazing people. You think about it. In 2014, nobody has ever seen this, and they're ready for it. How far, they're the world leader on this kind of thing. So think about those folks. Like, it was an eye opener for me in 2014, but they were ready for it. And I just, when I talk to those folks, the kind of infectious disease specialized in training, that's pretty broader training. You don't, the pathogens you have mentioned, those are the part of the training, but these are the amazing people, those who, I talk to them, and then infectious disease specialized in, you learn a lot. You learn about common bacterial infections, to bread and butter infectious diseases that you practice every day, to very, very difficult to treat infections like endocarditis, or very rare infections, unusual infections. You learn a lot about um, uh, uh, a special host, like immunocompromised hosts, like patient with bone marrow transplant, solid organ transplant. They can get all the kind of weird infections, and you learn a lot about HIV. So that kind of pretty broader training, and at the same time, you also learn how to take care of the special pathogen. They have a special program in your infectious disease training where they train you and take you to the biocontainment unit, and kind of how the biocontainment units are designed. You can go, and you can go in any part of the world. Even you can make these biocontainments just from the tents. So you just need to learn the science behind it. Once they teach you all that, how to take care of these special pathogens, and also the pathogens that we don't know about. The pathogen X that we don't know about is going to come in the future. It could be anything. It could be very unknown, and how you're going to respond at that situation. I remember when this was the COVID-19 was starting in the February, March, and I was doing night shifts, and kind of we were getting prepared. At that time, there were a lot of patients in the middle of the night. They were coming in, they were coughing and have respiratory symptoms, and nobody really knew at that time how to best take care of these patients. And also we were using the same PPEs and same infection control practices that we have been trained all along. I think those things do work, and that training does help. And some of these patients, you have to place them on ventilator, and how you do that is you do something called an intubation. You kind of go into their pharynx, and that's where the highest number of viruses are, and you're at the highest risk of getting at that time when you do that procedure. So we were doing all that when this was all starting in February, March, and doing all along, and I was fortunate enough to get that training that I knew how to deal with it.
Yeah, and I think you talk about what it is to actually intubate someone, whether it's you or you're just in the room, and the vulnerability that is for a frontline healthcare worker. I mean, and you look at the droplets and kind of all the technology and research behind how the infection is spread, and I mean that's one of the big ways, right? And so
that is one of the biggest thing. And here I am on visa backlog, green card backlog, and doing the highest risk procedure to save patient life. I'm not going to hold back myself because of visa delays, green card backlog. That's unfortunate that we are stuck in this. The Congress, the politician cannot pass it. That's unfortunate. But this is not going to come between my practice. I'm not going to hold back myself because if I get exposed, I don't know what can happen if I'm going to get COVID. I'm not sure if I'm going to, I might die of it, right? Anybody can
Right.
die of COVID. And in February, March, we didn't know anything about that. So,
Yeah.
I
Eh,
keep thinking, if I get COVID and I get admitted to ICU, are they going to deport me before I die or after I die? Like, how is that going to work?
right.
It's a very serious question.
And I think that goes along with the common theme of being an H1B, whether you're an H1B MD or an H1B programmer, there's this theme of fear and anxiety, for the temporary foreign workers, MDs included, right?
Yeah,
And, I think that fear that you're talking about, that speaks volumes that, here you are exposing yourself day in and day out to something that could most likely put you in an ICU unit, for weeks on end. And if that time frame, let's say it's more than 60 days, what does that mean for your status? Right? I mean, I
I
think
don't know.
that yeah, I mean, I think that we can sit here and hypothesize that question, and
yeah,
we can laugh about it uncomfortably, right? But
yeah.
I think ultimately it's like literally at day 61 you're out of status, you
Yeah, I'm
know?
illegal. I'm 2 months. I'm sick of COVID. I'm illegal. That's the truth about it. So, it's you are one step away from falling from the cliff. If you are an H1B and backlog, you're one step away. There are
Hmm.
more than 1 million people right now in the backlog, and things gonna happen to them. You cannot beat statistics. If you apply simple basic math statistics, what is the prevalence of incidence of diseases in overall general population and 1.2 million people? You can say, like, there are reports on that 200,000 people will die waiting in the backlog. uh,
Yeah.
I could be one of them. I'm not immune to any medical problems that anybody can have. I'm not immune to those, so I'm pretty well aware of that.
Right. Yeah, and I think, it goes back to, geez, as we talked about. I mean, you've been here 12 years and counting, So, if you're streaming right now, you want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this afternoon for the Stamp It Out 7 with Dr. Raj Karnatak. I'd like to ask, if you haven't already, please like this video. If you're new to this channel, this is the first time you're checking out the H1B Guy here, I'd ask you to subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Helps me to continue to produce content like this and have guests on like Dr. Raj that honestly just have such a fascinating story to tell. One of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, Dr. Raj, and we talked about, geez, a good bit last week, and that was, around the vaccine, right? And I think, you've seen and we've seen the vaccine kind of be front and center since the beginning of COVID came out. This is a full disclaimer for the channel here, and that is, these opinions that are being shared here today by myself and by Dr. Raj are opinions. They're for entertainment purposes only. And so I tee that up because I was and still am a little bit of a skeptic on the vaccine. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I think when you look at how normal vaccines go through their trials, and then you look at this one being, expedited in the way that it has, I personally have had some concerns, mainly because of this new technology and how quickly it's been moved on. But I had a chance to talk to Dr. Raj, and I aired my concerns out to him, and I think what I gained from you is a change in opinion. And so, can you give us some intel on the technology behind the vaccine, what your thoughts are, and honestly, how did your opinion on it? Because I know based on our conversation, when you were back in February, March, you shared some of the same concerns. And as you've been privy to a lot of the information and the trials and the testings around it, you've come to a conclusion that, when it's your name is called, you're gonna take the vaccine. And honestly, and I guess the question is, can you tell us about the technology? Give us some intel on how it works, and what you foresee in terms of med tech, around this vaccine and potentially even some others going forward.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And the forum we are talking right now is, many of our, who service listening, most of them are very high tech workers or very highly educated, high skilled people are there. And I think I'm going to try to make a case for them. And I just want to start by saying that I already got my first shot. So I got the vaccine. And this is, when you look from the clinical trial data from point of view, or you look from the science behind it, you can look at from the both side, and you will probably reach the same conclusion that vaccine is very safe and effective. This mRNA technology we are talking about is not new. This has been talked about 20, 30 years now. And as I said that in 2014, that was an eye opener for physicians like me, and also similarly with the vaccine researchers, it was an eye opener for them. And there was a similar vaccine with the mRNA technology was designed for Zika and other flaviviruses. This technology has been designed, and the a lot of doses to other animals and humans has been given in the past. We now probably have few years of the data on that. So if you think about the thousands of 30-40,000 people, those who participated in Moderna or the Pfizer trial, they don't really have any of the major side effects. That it's more than 90% effective, and that's the clinical trials part of it. And also at the same time, they have submitted data to the FDA, and almost every major agency in the world has approved this vaccine, these vaccines. So submitting data to FDA is very, very different than publishing something in the manuscript or journal. If you know about the process of it, how that data is reviewed, because FDA is the final body. Once FDA approves it, it means a lot. We should trust that. And I'll go into why I'm saying that. If you Because FDA not only looks at the data that is given by these agencies, just kind of, these are our conclusions are, this is what the study we did. FDA also looks at the individual patient data. Every paper, each and everything, whatever have been done on this from the study has been started. They reviewed it, and they will come out. That's how they do it. They will come out with their own conclusion. They're not going to trust what these agencies are saying, what Pfizer is saying, companies are saying, or Moderna is saying. So they came out with their own conclusion. So I trust that. So that's one part of the clinical trial data. If you go behind the science of it, how the mRNA vaccine works, so this mRNA is a fraction of that viral RNA that codes for the spike protein that we know. And this mRNA, if you go back to biology class, this mRNA goes inside the cell and goes to the protein factory, the ribosome of your cell, and makes some spike protein. That's all what it does. Nothing beyond that. And if you compare with it, what SARS-CoV-2, this virus has demonstrated in this time, this is a very, very infectious pathogen. If you don't get the vaccine, you don't get this pandemic under control, you will get this infection at some point. And once you get the natural infection, you're going to get the entire RNA of the virus. It's not going to the fraction of the gene of the spike protein that goes only to the cell. And that entire RNA is going to be in millions of copies in your nasopharynx in your body. And that is also going to integrate into your genetic material, the natural infection. This mRNA vaccine, the fraction of the spike protein that translates into the cytoplasm outside part of the cell, does not go into the nucleus. And it has to be kept so cold that then it's going to degrade. So this mRNA, there's lipid nanoparticle around it. So that's how the vaccine works. And you think about getting this natural infection, you're gonna get the whole RNA, millions of that copies that will integrate your genetic material. That's gonna do like thousands and thousands of times more damage to you than what this vaccine is going to do. So if you think about that, so the vaccine is very safe, very effective, and whenever you're being offered this vaccine, you should go and take it. Because if we don't get this under control, you will get the natural infection, and you know what is happening to a lot of people. If you're a high risk group, how many people are dying. It's been really bad. This year has been the worst year of all of our life, and especially what I have seen this year is this is very unfortunate. This is a very, very tough year. We have to get over this. We have to get the vaccine. And at the same time, while we're getting vaccine and all that, we need to keep practicing, wearing the mask, social distancing, washing your hands, avoiding crowds, don't go out. All these things need to be done because we have to have 60 or 70% of the population immunized before we can kind of start taking back some of the precautions we are taking. So vaccine is very safe, very effective, very minimal side effect. I got the first shot, a little bit of pain in my arm, nothing more than that. Second shot I'm going to get in a couple of weeks. It's probably going to have a little more side effect, but that's good. Some chills and body ache. Probably that's why my body's kind of building the immune response. That's what you want to get. And if you think about it in a broader term, the evolution of human being, about 8% of our genetic material is viral DNA. If you look at it, so over millions and zillions of years, we have had these infections that keep on integrating to our DNA and require and keep. So you don't want to get the natural infection. The safest way to get off this is to get the vaccine. You really don't want to get what that virus is doing. We don't really know what are the long-term side effects of the virus. We have people dying in the ICU. We have people those who are young got the virus and continue to have persistent symptoms, fatigue, and now we are also learning recently there are people those who are long haulers. Like they get the infection and lingering on, going on for weeks and months. Part of my my full-time job from last 10 months is take care of COVID patient in ICU, and part of it is also to constantly review the science and data that is coming up, how we are going to get better. And we have got better over the period of time to take care of these patients because we have been constantly reviewing the therapeutics and what is coming out. So what you want to do is you want to get the vaccine. You want to get protected from this virus because you really don't know what are the long-term consequences of this virus is. And honestly speaking, uh, if you some of the folks those who survive this, a lot of them has lung damage to a degree that that will lead to a lot of disability. Unfortunately, uh, it's you want to stay away from this virus. That's what I would say.
So sounds like what in this past week is that I'm assuming the Pfizer dose that
Yes, yes.
that you took. Do you see any difference between the two manufacturers in terms of the research that you've seen and effective rates or anything like that? Is there any difference or concerns for me? I mean, is there one that I want versus the other? I don't know if that's a legitimate question or not, but just a
I,
thought.
I, I think whatever you have been offered, just take that vaccine because both of them are the same technology. The only difference I have seen is how we store these vaccines. The
Okay.
Pfizer BioNTech vaccine has to be stored in extremely negative temperature, and
Mm-hmm.
Moderna vaccine is something like you can store in the normal refrigerator.
Okay.
All those are the main things that I've seen. There's no the technology is the same, and side effects wise, there's not much of a difference.
Hmm. Well, I just really appreciate you walking me through this, and any of the folks that are streaming or going to watch this in replay. I mean, there's no secret that 80% of my subscribers and followers are either former temporary foreign workers or current, right? And so
Yeah.
just something for them to be aware of, that if it's made available, you've heard it here. And again, this is an opinion merely for personal and entertainment use only. But you've been really outspoken on Twitter, and I think the reason behind that and the motivation is clearly evident kind of through this conversation so far. You've supported S386, you've supported S3599. What is it about Twitter as a platform and using that to motivate you to speak out?
It's a so the tipping point was when the middle of the pandemic. I couldn't go and serve to the places where I wanted to go. That was the tipping point. That was it. Like this, I cannot go beyond this. And what my personal belief is, people are saying, oh, high tech workers, physicians, we should have separate things. Each and every one of us, those who are on backlog, if you look at high tech, professionals or some of the scientists or some of the doctors, all of them are equally they deserve the green card equally, and they're capable and they deserve it. And Twitter, that's that. What I believe is social media has a lot of power. We have seen it. Like we have seen it it's been 10, 15 years, internationally, nationally, you see that how much, you need to constantly bring this message out. And social media, gives you an opportunity, a common person, you don't have to go to any big media house or anybody, you can just get your message out there and try to motivate people. And and it's really important for us to be together in this. It's not about me getting my green card first or someone other getting the green card first. This is wrong. This is wrong for anyone. So if you don't want it for yourself, why would you want this to anybody? If I say, oh, I'm a medical professional, I should be getting it first and the tax should be getting later, why would I say that? If I don't want to be on backlog, why do I want somebody else to be on backlog? Why shouldn't we all equal? Everybody is doing great work wherever they can be. They are needed. They have been invited here to work. They are high skilled. They have been vetted again and again. These are the people, those who have been living here from many of them are from decades. Why, all of them are equally eligible to get it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you knew this or not, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but the January 2021 visa bulletin posted today, and EB2 for India moved 1 week.
Yeah,
1 week in a month, and moved 1 week. And so, the point is that if you don't speak out, even someone like you, with the education and the pedigree that you have, then you're just a sheep to the system. And I don't mean that negatively, but you've been vocal, and you've been vocal in who you are engaging with. And to me, when I see you tweet, and this is a promotion for anyone who subscribes to this channel or follows me on Twitter, you need to follow Dr. Raj, and I'll have his handle. It's in the description, but it's at RAJ_KARNATAK. So that's Raj_Karnatak on Twitter. And he's a great follow, because what he talks about is equality. And that's something that we've talked about a lot on this channel. One of the things that you and I talked about is you advocating for DALCA H4 Dreamer kids, even though you don't have children yourself and you're not impacted by that, but you just fundamentally think it's wrong. And you're willing to speak out on it and throw your support behind your friends, folks that because ultimately Twitter gives you that platform, and it gives you a voice that any opinions or endorsements are truly the views of Dr. Raj. So again, a great follow on Twitter for you guys. And that's, as I alluded to, that's where you and I originally connected on Twitter. Is I had commented on a tweet from Dr. Pranav Singh that told his story about leaving the US to take his family back to India. And that's when I found you, and you and I started to interact a good bit, and we realized that there's some very similar ideologies that we share. What was it about me and the H1B Guy platform that interested you in interacting with me?
The H1B Guy is very important to me. Why I got attracted to H1B Guy is you are a voice of common American. You are not a special interest group. You are not a lobbyist. You are not a big media. You are a voice of common American. And if you can look at this, anybody can look at this and say this is wrong. This is your voice. And you are coming out and saying this, and I should be supporting it. And 1.2 million people waiting on the backlog. I want to say that they have to support you. They have to follow you, because it's so much important, the voices you are bringing. We say that we are high skilled immigrant, we pay this much of taxes, we contribute this much $1 billion to the economy. We say all that, but we have to create the examples, people, those who are bringing out your voices. We have to create the examples. We have seen the power of social media. We have seen, H1B guys here who's coming, you are coming by yourself. But when people look at your example, other people will start coming out from the voices. We don't really understand how powerful this medium is. So this is what I'm going to urge everybody, whosoever in backlog is 1 million people. You have to support this cause. You have to bring these voices ahead. You need to stand out, because if you're going to stand out, then our voice, our message is going to stand out. That's what it behind it. So I think that's absolutely critical. I keep saying to everybody I know that we have to bring your voice out, because you have given me platform, stories like me, other people, bringing out
Mm-hmm.
those stories, bringing out this issue. And you're a common American, you can see this, and you can say this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening, and
Yep.
that's very important to me. Your voice is very special. You
Mm-hmm.
can as a backlog high school immigrant, we can get some degree of money and can get some lobbyists to go to DC to lobby for us. That's not, your voice is very special. This is an independent voice that is coming out, and that's very special for me. And and going to Dr. Pranav Singh's story, Dr. Singh, I know him very well, and I still talk to him. So I connected with him because he's just like me. He's an intensive care unit doctor. He was here treating patients in pandemic, and he got fed up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And he told that I'm done with it. I'm just gonna go. I'm leave. He's in Delhi right now. I still talk to him, and he's treating patients there. And he was done with the system. You can walk out anytime. Not a big deal. We're gonna get. We are skilled. Like. People say that. Why don't you go back? All the haters, when you see the social media, they'll bring a question. Go back to your country. But
Mm-hmm.
but they have to understand it. Going back, we can go back anytime. That's not the issue. But people have their life, and when you live somewhere a decade of your life, who wants to keep going moving around. You got society, you got friends here, you got people here. This is where you're working, your all work is here. You leave everything just because you're on the backlog. This doesn't make sense. These
Yeah.
people have been living here for decades. These are not the new H1B you're giving to anybody. These people are here from a decade.
Right.
Come on, man. These people have been here. These are not, you're not bringing anybody new into this country. Like, this is bizarre argument. I get the bizarre argument that, oh, you're bringing in new people. Nobody's bringing anybody new. These people have been living here for decades now. And
Yeah.
what I hear, the stories I hear, this is, you know, uh, some of the stories are heartbreaking.
Well, and it's funny because I guess as I said, my experience has been in the STEM side of H1B. But when you start to look at the medical side, Dr. Pranav Singh was the first one where I actually did some research on, and then you dive into it further, as I mentioned, the Pravina Dr. Pravina Jadev story, and then I run into I've had him on the channel, Hamachu Kaushik, who is a physical therapist who isn't under the same exempt umbrella that a lot of medical MDs are, but PTs in terms of rehabilitation and their importance in the process and kind of their voice in all of this. And just you look at this big circle of problem, right? And one of the things when I launched this channel is I wanted to help educate folks on what the H-1B visa is. And then when I dive into it further, what I realized is that we don't have Dr. Raj fighting the front lines of the pandemic for COVID over the last 10 months without H-1B visa. Does that mean that it needs to stay in the current form that it is? No. I mean, I think I've been very vocal about the need for reform. I've been vocal about my support of a merit-based point system. And so I think that what needs to happen is that there needs to be some separation of the medical professionals, such as yourself, MDs, RNs. I'll even put PTs into that. And then looking at the tech space and the STEM space in sort of a different light. Um, but really appreciate your support. I enjoy your interaction so much. I mean, I can't tell you enough when I see something that you tweet about how thought out it is, and it provokes my thought. And that's what I look for in folks that I want to interact with and engage with on Twitter, is that there's a stimulus there, right? Stimulating me mentally, whether I agree with you or not. It's about the deeper thought, right? And kind of the future of it all. Um, Monday, I did sort of an impromptu live stream where people said there wasn't really much to talk about on HR 1044 S386. And as I alluded to earlier, we broke a record. And you had asked me a question during that stream, and I've had some time to think about it. And the question that you had asked me is, kind of based on the fact that this isn't going to be included in the omnibus, do I see any strain towards India and U.S. relations? And I've thought about this a good bit, and I really don't see anything changing. The system is the system right now, and until the cycle is broken, I think you'll see kind of a continuation of the status, because ultimately, you're sort of out of sight, out of mind for them. Meaning, as a temporary foreign worker here in the U.S., have you thought about the answer to that question over the last couple of days? What do you think about U.S.-India relations as it relates to some of the news of HR 1044 and the current backlog that exists? Do you have any thoughts around those relations?
I'm no diplomat, but I have some common sense. I can think about common sense. If you think about 1.2 million highly skilled Indians working here, and in the backlog, and what sufferings they're going through, I can go by one by one by one. And it's Indian government is not, they're not fooled. People are not born yesterday. People are seeing, everybody's seeing what is happening around the world, right? Who treats us how, everybody sees that. Nobody was born yesterday. And we say that diplomacy is, it's not between the government, it's between the people. We got to bring the people together. If you don't bring anybody into US, but if once you bring them here, don't get them to this backlog. The stories I'm hearing is kind of heartbreaking, and I have seen these stories all over Indian media. I'll tell you this. And when this comes out in the Indian media, I mean, that also kind of have some perspective on how we are being treated. This is I'm no diplomat, but I can see the common sense. What is going to happen. How people. How we need to trust a partner. Like it's very obvious. In this changing global world, India is the biggest proponent of America. America is a world leader. We still need to support America because it's a free world. This is the voice that we need to be supporting, because otherwise, what's going to happen, we have all seen. America has saved us from again and again from the wrong things. What can happen to us? But if you talk about this is all over Indian media, I'll tell you. And that puts some impact on the society. It's not something. I'm no diplomat, but that's what I'm just saying it because what I have seen in the media, what people are talking about, and this, the relationship between the countries are a relationship between the people. There has to be. I think, I don't know, I may be wrong. When this H4EAD thing was solved, by the Indian Prime Minister was in the White House and they talked about, I think there's a push from Indian government about H4EADs, because there's so many women. Most of these women are actually H4EADs, those who are sitting at home, they are more talented than their husbands.
Right.
And where are those feminist groups? How can you make them sit at home for decades? Some of them are doctors, some of them are engineers. They're very, very smart women, those who are coming here on H4EADs. And they're just sitting, they can contribute so much in the society. It's really, and I will, what I kind of have been going through some of the stories. I think we have to bring it out because I was very taken back by the story of one of the guy I learned on the Twitter. We have been talking about Twitter. This guy who got diagnosed of leukemia. And I think he was a high-tech worker, and he got 2 bone marrow transplants here. And while all this chemotherapies, bone marrow transplant, he was been here, living here for decades. He was still working from his hospital computer, and this is insane. Pushing somebody to that edge. He was just worried that they're going to deport his family. That's why he was in the hospital, living here decades. And after 2 bone marrow transplant, he was still working from the hospital, just to keep his status in this country. It's beyond, and I have, I have learned this story that people couldn't go to funeral of their parents. How does that happen? In this 21st century, in this free world we live in, how does that happen that you can't go, for the funeral of your parents because just you're worried that you're worried about losing your status in the visa line, and what is happening to the aging out kids? You have seen that these kids are growing up here in the US and they have to get a student visa and H1B. Who gets the student visa in their own country? It's bizarre for me.
Yeah, the individual you're talking about, Lakshmi Narayanan Sundarararam, is who that was.
That hit me really hard. That story was very.
Continued to work even from his hospital bed so that he could maintain his status. Yeah, and I mean, there's stories out there. There's other ones. The Manpreet Singh story, and there's a few others. Manpreet Singh was a Sikh that drowned in San Francisco Bay trying to save someone and on an H1. So, I mean, I think what I wanted to say about the U.S.-India relations is that you've seen some growth there, right? I mean, you just have positive growth. I mean, the Trump tour with the arenas and everything that took place, Prime Minister Modi coming here. I mean, so you've seen a lot of that evolution and growth. Politics is such an interesting thing because it can turn so quickly. But on the H4 front, I saw where, and I'm going to talk about this in the news this week. It looks like there were somewhere around 60 plus lawmakers that are banding together to help influence, President-elect Joe Biden and the extension of H4 EADs. I've talked about that on this channel here a good bit. Going back to May 2015 when the H4 became an option. It created this pool of candidates, and unfortunately, we're a few years behind the game, right? And what I mean by that is they hadn't worked, some of them 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So it created some cheaper labor. Now that isn't necessarily as much the case, because you're talking about something that was 5 years ago now. But I mean, I think that to me was very positive because you're talking about the dual income, right, and options for the spouse to work and work without restrictions, meaning that if the spouse wanted to work in a grocery store or wait tables, they could. It wasn't tied to a specialty occupation, which is the ultimate freedom to choose there. So before I ask you the last question, I'm just going to ask, we got a bunch of comments and then a few questions, Dr. Raj, but if any of you guys have any other comments for myself, questions for Dr. Raj about the vaccine, about the virus, about the work that he's been doing, throw those in the chat. We're going to get to them. We've got about 15, 20 more minutes here with Dr. Raj. But I wanted to ask you one last question, Dr. Raj. And I know you've recently made this move, kind of been in your current role, less than a year. But what's next for you? What's next for you professionally? What are you pursuing personally? Where are you right now in terms of kind of setting up goals and things that you're looking to accomplish over the next couple of years?
So the first thing is we have to get this pandemic under control. Visa, backlog, everything will be there, and we have to keep fighting for that. But the first thing is we have to get this pandemic under control. And the professional front, there are huge challenges. With COVID itself, we are continuing to work that how we can treat our patients better, what else we can do. We are just dedicated so much into it. Like there's anything happening anywhere around the world, we want to know about that and continue to get better on that front. I think this is the first priority for a physician like me. Whatever else is happening in medicine, this is the number one priority right now. We have to get this pandemic behind us, and then at the same time we have to get better treating patients with especially seriously ill patient with COVID. How can we save those lives? How can we make impact on those patients' life? I think that's very, very important. That's we will continue to do whatever we have to do as a person, whatever my contribution is, and then other frontline healthcare workers like me, they are 24/7 into it. Like this is something that is hard. They just can't take this from our mind. This is 24/7 in our brain, and it's and there are other things in medicine that excites me. The sepsis, being one of the infectious disease and critical care doctors, sepsis is something that I'm always passionate about working into, and infections and healthcare associated infections that I've been part of some of the projects we did. So I will continue to work on those. That's all in the short run going on right now.
Man, and just little things on the schedule, right? I mean,
yeah.
I say that jokingly. I mean, I think, my spouse is a healthcare professional. I know what it's like for her, and I can't imagine what it's like for you. And for me, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I know, you're not treating me or anything like that, but thank you for everything that you do, because I think that a lot of times it's thankless, and you're seeing a lot of these photos medical professionals and the PPE attire that they've been wearing for hours on end, and the damage that it's doing to their bodies, right? Their faces, their heads, their ears, their nose.
Oh yeah, probably that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that those are the telling signs. But as you mentioned, talking about one of the things that this has done, and that's it's really made a lot of folks unfortunately be alone for a long period of time, and I think that that's the underlying sort of impact of this whole thing. And so, listen, I'm going to do my part to help curb this thing, and thank you for everything that you do, as well. And so, I wanted to move into the Q&A here. I mean, it's several comments for the most part, Dr. Raj. Not a lot of questions. I mean, I think a lot of what we've talked about has been self-explanatory. But if you're still watching and you have a question or a comment, we've got about 10 or so minutes. We're going to go through those here. It's Dr. Raj and I mean, it's a lot of comments, and just want to acknowledge, you guys taking the time to drop these comments and questions in the chat. So if you got any left, now's the time, throw them in there and I'll pull them up on the screen. So we're going to start here. Dr. Raj Abhishek is a regular contributor here on this channel and doesn't ever miss a live stream. So he just wanted to say thanks for the chat, and that it's good to see someone raise voice against inequality. Yeah, and that's what we've been fighting for a lot, right? Is an equal voice and being treated equal. Having everyone stand in the same line versus separate lines, right?
Yeah.
So Manoj asks, is there any update on the H1B ban? So Dr. Raj, I'll just throw this one. I'll answer this one because I know this probably isn't something that you're aware of. But I did see there was an update that came out that talked about not to expect things to go back to normal processing for appointments until March, is what I read, and I'll cover that more towards the end of the week in the news. But it looks like for consulates, specifically in India, it looks like they're not going to resume anything normal until March at the earliest. And the interesting thing about that is you can get an appointment. There's expedited exception appointments, but they're very rare. And the ones that I've seen for the most part are individuals that have been perm employees that company absolutely requires their skills here in the U.S. So this travel ban has been a huge impact on a lot of people. So Abhishek says lots of Indians looking to get green card through employment rather than waiting for USA administration to pass a bill, which doesn't look like it will happen. He's looking forward for other options like investing in business, which is kind of visa best suits this. I think it's better to take matter in our own hands than depending upon immigration. Last immigration bill was passed in 1990. Data says that it's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things I've talked about a good bit, is that you're talking about the Immigration Act of 1990, which was the birth of job-based immigration, employment-based preferences, EB1 through EB5. That's where we saw the country of cap quotas, 7%, be implemented, 140,000 green cards issued fiscally in that category. So yeah, I mean, the best visa, I mean, the EB5 is one. I've seen a lot of folks try to figure out the EB2 national interest waiver approach as well. I mean, Dr. Raj, I think that's something that for you could possibly even look at is the NIW, if you were ever interested in pursuing that, just kind of based on what you do. I've seen EB1, and again, the investor visa is $1 million in liquidity, right? And that's the minimum. And so those have become really difficult to get recently. But yeah, your options are sort of minimal here, Abhishek. I mean, EB5, investor visa, if there was a way for you to go EB1 or even the EB2 and the national interest waiver route, those are three options, but those are not easy options. Anything on that, Dr. Raj? What do you think about that in terms of taking matters into your own hands? Do you that really resonates with you, I would imagine?
I would just say go through the right route, whatever you qualify for. And I've been advised to go for EB1, but I haven't tried that yet. So maybe,
Mm,
but take the right route. Just go to the legal route. We are genuine people. We are hardworking, high skill immigrant. We
mm-hmm.
take the right path. It will happen. Nobody
Yeah,
can nobody can deny you rights, and do whatever you have to do in your life. Just don't look at the visa. Just whatever you're passionate about, do it. Visa will happen or not happen, and it's just
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've read some things on the EB1 path for MDs that is a possibility. So I think when you look at you and what your situation is, that's always an option that you could pursue. And again, we've talked about this as well. If Abhishek, you're looking at other options and what they are. You work for an employer who has their own immigration attorney. Don't hesitate to contact outside counsel and pay them for their time to advise you. Right? That $200-$300 in that initial consultation may be worth absolute peace of mind for you. I talked about we talked about this in the Stamp It Out with Dr. Oscar Cabresis, where he talked about no. Then he finally got an immigration attorney who said, I think you have a natural interest waiver claim here, and took that route, and lo and behold was able to move through the process very quickly. So don't be afraid to get outside counsel to advise you. If I can help you, to reach out to me. Samir says, hey, thanks, Robert and Raj, for doing this. Very similar here from Mandar. Thanks, H1B Guy and Dr. Raj for doing this. Here's something really personal from Samir. So it says, having lost my father-in-law to this crazy virus, I urge everyone to get vaccinated, folks. The worst part is my wife could not travel because our stamping had expired.
There you
And
go.
then here you go. All the more reason to be safe being a backlog Indian waiting in the GC line. And that's your point, Raj, is that your advice to me and your advice to anyone else is, if it is available to you, get vaccinated.
Get vaccine. Yes.
And I know that there are a lot of anti-vaxxers out there that don't get the flu shot and don't agree with it, and kind of all around that. And it just comes back to me, it's what Samir said, right? Is that it's about everyone doing their part to curb it, and ultimately, I think, Dr. Raj, you and I both know not everyone's going to get vaccinated. They're just not. That's not how things work here in this country. But he's talking about, while that's bizarre to hear, if it's not the reason to understand this misery, then what else is? Someone working from a hospital just to ensure status. Yeah, that's the Lakshmi Naranyanan's story. It's crazy. I mean, that story is crazy, that his wife and kid were both H4s without work authorization, completely dependent upon his visa, and upon his passing, they have 60 days to leave the country. Which is crazy, Dr. Raj. You think about like the hypothetical here, and Samir has a Dalka kid, and I'm just gonna say, if Samir was in your role, right, with a Dalka kid, and were to contract COVID and potentially perish, his kid and his wife would have 60 days to leave the country.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. That's what I said. The stories I hear, they're heartbreaking. That's what I've been so vocal on Twitter about this. This is not about my green card or anyone else's green. We shouldn't be doing this to anybody.
Yep.
This is not about this category, that category. It's about human beings. We should remember that. And when we deviate from that thought, that's very dangerous. And it's not fair. It's think about that family. When these people are here, giving their youth years. When some of these people come here, they're 20s. and something happened in their 40s and their kids are being deported. It's so unfortunate. Something, the biggest thing you can give to any country is give your youth.
Mm-hmm.
You give your youth and stay here and get that. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to anybody. We should move beyond this politics. We should move beyond whatever is happening, lobbying and whatever. I've heard about these lawyers don't want us to get cleared.
Mm-hmm.
It's sickening. It's sickening to hear those kind of stories.
And what's interesting is I just kind of pulled it up. I found the article because I covered this back at the end of August, and it says the family gets 14 days to sell their assets and leave the U.S. And
Yeah.
then the other thing was, I guess basically there's a period of time, but the spouse was on an H4 EAD and immediately lost work authorization because her that tied directly to her spouse and no longer possessed any work authorization. So we're going to be wrapping this up here in a few minutes. If you have any more comments or just acknowledgments for Dr. Raj, go ahead, post those in the chat. I'll bring them up here as we wrap up. Samir just wanted to say one last thing to you, Dr. Raj, and that's thanks for everything you do and making us Indians proud. I mean, doesn't that make you feel good? I mean,
Thank you, sir.
You make me proud. I mean, it's just because you know what, man, you're passionate about something and you're being a good human, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I think I was talking to my friend Richard at recruiternetworks.com earlier today. Just he and I were doing some planning for stuff going into January, and we were talking about how the American dream, what it really is. He and I had gotten into that, Dr. Raj, and one of the things that we talked about was that it's really not about the dream, but it's about the opportunity. And that opportunity is up to you to decide what you do with it.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very powerful message because, ultimately here you are scrambling, right? Smear scrambling. We're scrambling to maintain status.
Yeah.
And even if you're in a situation like yours where you can continue to do what you do into the foreseeable future, there's still an uncertainty.
Yeah.
Your stamp expires. Guess what, Dr. Raj? You got to go through the same stamp it out process with a consulate officer.
And I'm not immune to anything what everybody else can get. I can get anything, any of those things, and get hit by anything, and get sick or do anything. I will be in the same state. After serving my youth years as a physician in this country, I will be deported in 60 days. That's what it's not. It should not be happening to anybody. And we are thinking that's what I learned as growing up. Be human first. Whatever else is second. And I'm going to tell you, what this high skill thing is. And the motto of America is attracting the brightest of bright, right? That's what the motto is. And if you might not see the, you might not see the decrease in the number of people coming in, but absolutely, the brightest of bright in India, Indian government is also trying to keep them there. Let me tell you one thing. So they're very, very smart people. I know many of them. They're very smart. I don't have to tell them what to do. So you're going to see a lot of people trying to come in again, but you are not going to get that brightest of bright if you're trying to, if people are going into this kind of backlog and being treated like this, and they can't innovate, they can't entrepreneur. It's those people are, you are not going to get that brightest of bright. That's for sure. You're only going to get, whatever the average is going to come in, because they're going to try to come in and find a job anywhere. But if your goal is to get the brightest of bright, you have to show them how we treat people. I don't expect they're going to be decreasing the number of people coming in, but the number doesn't matter. Remember that.
So I've got a good question for you. I'm going to tee this up with this question I'm about to bring up on the screen here, Dr. Raj. I read something yesterday that was talking about, we were alluding to, you were mentioning West Africa. I saw something that was talking about the former country of Zaire and some of the Ebola outbreaks that happened there, and how the villagers walk around kind of with the concern, the daily life of Ebola. And it mentioned that there's some concern about some sort of new variation of Ebola. We see some of the news in the UK about the variations of COVID, right? And so here you go. I mean, this is a great question, and it says, what is being done to avoid the next viral pandemic? These wet markets and illegal wildlife trade centers seem to be a significant health threat that no one seems to be paying attention to. So I guess, you know, that second part, we'll leave it as is. But the question that I'm interested in is what is being done to avoid the next viral pandemic?
This is a great question. This is a very great question.
I agree, 100%. Awesome
Yeah,
question.
you have to understand, what these pandemics are, and what we can only learn from the history. What has happened in the past will tell you a lot about what can happen in the future. If you read about history of pandemics, every 50 to 100 years, one pandemic will hit the earth, and this is exactly happening now. So what we can do, we know what are the pathogens those are of pandemic potential, and many of these pandemics have been kind of brewing up, and we are learning about them, and then we know a little bit about them, but then don't really do much about that. Even if you see about this coronavirus outbreak, this is the third coronavirus outbreak in the last 20 years. If you think about that, we have enough time to work on it, get a vaccine against it, get an antiviral medication, because this pathogen has been identified as a pandemic potential. And definitely, closing about that wet market, illegal wet market, all that has to be done. That should be number one priority. That we cannot let this happen, and because they are just very high risk for growing a pandemic. So we can identify what pathogens can cause pandemics in the future, and we can have with this mRNA technology, or any other vaccine technology, we can have vaccines and antiviral medications of those pandemics kind of at least halfway through. We can have some sense of if this is going to happen, how we can deal with it. So you might have heard about bird flu, avian influenza. The mortality is 50%. If you think about it, like if an outbreak of avian influenza happens today, the 50% of humanity will go away. It will kill 50% of people. We need a universal flu vaccine, and this has been said again and again. And I've been going to the infectious disease national conferences every year, and we keep talking about it. This is okay. We have had many eye openers in the past. I think some of us try to work on it, and this we can take this one as an eye opener too, because this is COVID-19, but we can have worse pathogens coming in the future. How we are allocating our resources, how we are funding our research. When SARS happened in 2002, there were researchers at that time tried to develop SARS vaccine. They didn't have a few $1 million to do for the trials on those or do studies. They were just kind of looking into how to get more resources, and now here we are. Finally, we have a good vaccine, and we should be taking it. That's the number one thing we should be doing. But the future pandemic, how to prevent it, I think that we need to invest more on what are the pathogens of pandemic potential. A lot of them we know, and there's also WHO programs. This is pathogen X, means unknown pathogen. How we're going to deal with that? I think putting our resources together and putting our resources in the right place will help us in the future. And we can get prepared for majority of it. We can get prepared of it, and developing that public health infrastructure. The biggest failure was to let it out wherever it was. We couldn't contain in Wuhan, we couldn't contain in New York, we couldn't contain in Italy. We could not contain it. That was the biggest thing. If we would have a public health network, a public health infrastructure that would have fastly diagnose, trace, and isolate, those kind of strategies. If we would have those things in place, we wouldn't have let it go out from anywhere. Once it's been mistake after another. But still 1 million people travel this weekend for Christmas. That shouldn't be happening. So this virus is not going by itself; it's going with people. We whatever we do, that has consequences.
Well, and it's interesting because I think a lot of what's happened has been the fatigue of the experience,
it's very tough,
right?
Very, very hard. It's not easy. It's very difficult to do all these things. The pandemic fatigue is there, and I am with that. And my parents are in India. They haven't gone. They go to really early morning hour or late evening for just walks and all those things. But apart from that, they're housebound for 10 months now, and it's just bad.
Yeah, and for me, you look at the death rates, right? And Ebola, I'll just kind of go back to that. I think was somewhere around a 50% mortality rate, and unfortunately, Fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, COVID hasn't seen that level, right? But I think that that's created some of the inferiority almost around it. Um, Samir says that at RRH, who asked you that question about avoiding the next viral pandemic, to read Guns, Germs, and Steel, you know it always is going to come back in some form or shape, and we can only do so much to completely prevent future pandemic. Maybe we can get a better handling them and then avoid them completely. And I think you've seen that over the last 100 years. I mean, and this isn't something that is new. It's just a matter of how we treat it and how quickly we're able to mobilize on it. So I mean, I think those are good points. But what I know, and again, you're the medical professional and I'm the pundit here, right? And that is what I know is that this isn't the last one that you and I are going to see in my generation, your generation, Dr. Raj. I mean, these things are going to continue to happen. It's just
I
a
I
given.
agree. I agree. You can't beat statistics. I agree about that. But we can do better. We can get prepared for this.
Mm-hmm.
We have the amount of resources US has, or the kind of scientists we have. Like, we can get a better handle on. We can do better. We can get prepared for these. We know some of these pathogens, and we can be ready for something unknown if we put our resources at the right channel. We if you I'm not going to say anything political here, but there are a lot of things that we did that we shouldn't be doing.
Well, and I think that that's the lessons to be learned, and that's the history books will write that kind of the pre-COVID, post-COVID era, and in terms of how things are handled. So, I just wanted to thank everyone who's taken the time to drop a comment here in the chat today. Abhishek, Manoj, Samir, Mandar, RRH with a great question. Thank you guys. Thanks to everyone who's joined the live stream today. If you haven't, please like this video. It will take probably about 24 hours. I'll tweet it out again tomorrow once it publishes completely on YouTube. But if you can share that, we've already gotten a share through EV Guy 7 on Twitter, Dr. Raj, where he's talking about here in the USA, if an immigrant dies to COVID-19, we expel their family in 60 days. If they leave to attend a funeral back home, they cannot come back because embassy abroad are shut. And that's exactly right. I mean, we've hit on both of those topics today. The fear and anxiety, the 60-day, if you're sick and die or not working and out of status, if you have to travel due to some unforeseen reason and your stamping is out of expiration, as Samir's is, and couldn't attend his father-in-law's funeral. I mean, these are real stories, and that's why we have the Stamp It Out here. This is one of the reasons I created this series, was to have folks like you on to tell their immigration story, the H1B life here in the US. And so I just want to say thank you for coming on here today, Dr. Raj. I just really appreciate it. It just means a whole lot. So I'm going to do a quick copy read here, and then we'll wrap up this stream. So just a reminder that today's live stream was brought to you by RecruiterNetworks.com, the smart solution for digital perm ads since 2001. This national job board network provides recruitment websites in 1,024 major metro U.S. areas. Each local job board is its own portal and is a low-cost resource for immigration recruitment ads for all industries and professions, with a flat price of $225 per ad, regardless of which city you choose. RecruiterNetworks.com has been the #1 place for immigration attorneys, immigration ad agencies, and employers to meet the DOL requirements for the digital portion of perm advertisement rules. RecruiterNetworks.com. Tell them the H1B guy sent you. Just really so thankful to have their sponsorship here on this channel so that I can bring folks like Dr. Raj to you. If any of you out there are watching, or even at a future date, and you want to tell your story, my DMs are open on Twitter. Please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you, get to know you, and decide if it does make sense to have you on. No post tomorrow, but I do have the H1B Guy news for the week ending December 25th, 2020. I've got a bunch of cool articles to cover. There's a bunch of updates that have happened this week, and a few things that I want to talk about, so I'll be getting that out. As I alluded to today, the visa bulletin dropped, so look for the H1B Guy grades either Monday or Tuesday of next week, where I'll go over how I did. I also wanted to ask you, I haven't plugged this in a while, come join the H1B Guy channel on Telegram. There's a link in the description. Also in the description of this video is Dr. Raj's Twitter handle, which is at RAJ_KRNATAK, Raj_Karnatak on Twitter. I know you said you're on LinkedIn, but you're not extremely active there. He's very active on Twitter, so please follow him. You won't regret that. Dr. Raj, any final words before we close it out today?
The final words I have is, I have the sun coming like here now. So the final word is, don't play politics on it. These are the people, human beings. We have to end the backlog. These people have been here for decades. Don't talk about this immigrant, that party, that lawyer. Do not talk about that. This backlog has to end, and this has to end for everybody. And people, nobody else is gets waits more than 1 year. People have been opposing like unnecessary fear and all that. Just make it equal. At least you can take the first step. That's the first step. Equality is the first step of any change. When you want to come on diversity, there are a lot of hundreds of thousands of reasons on diversity. Please stand in that line. You want to come in the green card lottery, please stand in that line. When you're talking about skill base, the people with the skills and the brightest of bright is watching it. They're watching it, and we are setting an example in front of that. And don't think that nobody's seeing, nothing happening, nobody's people, this is out there, everybody's watching it. This has been in India, the media all over there. It's so we have to set a better example.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I know you're doing your part. I'm going to keep trying to do my part. We're going to keep fighting for equality. You and I are going to keep fighting to end these country cap quotas and end this backlog. And I look forward to fighting that fight with you, Dr. Raj. And I just,
thank you. I appreciate your work. Yeah, thank you.
I want to say thank you again. I want you to be careful. Okay. Take care of yourself,
I'm not
right? Yeah. Because I'd like to have you back on at some point in the future. There's some things I'm working on. So this is just the first time that I want to have you on this channel, and just wanted to say thank you. So
thank you.
To everyone who is still watching, I'm just going to ask you, like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube if you're not already. Click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we go live, like we do today for the H1B Guy Stamp It Out 7. Or that we post new content to this channel. Little over 700 subscribers, inching ever closer to that 1,000. Just really looking forward to hitting that milestone, and then we're going to keep going. So again, thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. If you're still watching, I just really appreciate your support and taking the time to watch my content. I love doing these Stamp It Out Q&As. We're going to keep doing them, and we're going to keep telling immigrant stories. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that being said, the H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.